Chris says, why is it the quarterback salary has gotten so out of control? I get their value to a team, but they've always been some of the highest paid players in the sport. Even if you went back to the 80s, I would say, Chris. I think what I would probably point to as much as anything, number one, the league has become more offensive, and offensive rules have leaned towards that side of the ball. The most important offensive player is the quarterback. I think that there's also been two players that have come through over the past 20 years that have really captured the imagination of general managers and people building teams. And that's Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. And I think that these organizations are constantly in that spot of finding that guy that can be like those guys, and how much that helps you out and then getting yourself to a championship, how much that just allows you to hit the NOS button to get to a championship. And that it's very easy then for them to see a mirage within their own quarterback room, for them to think they've got the guy that's that guy, but in actuality, he's not that guy. But you're so dead set on wanting to find that guy and believe that you found him and trust your evaluation that that's him, that you're just going to keep doubling back down on that guy. And I think that that's been a bit of it too that's come into play on it, where it's those guys are so good and they're such difference makers at the position, and they can elevate their surrounding supporting cast to such a high level that why go this other hard way? The easy way is just get that guy and he cleans everything up. The easy way is I just pay that guy and then I don't have to worry about all that other stuff. I can get half of that other stuff all wrong and he'll still fix it all. And that's where I have come back time and again and railed on it, saying it really is the heart of this is it's lazy team building conceptually. Yes, the quarterback position matters. And yes, I get the paying them this big amount, but it's this utter fear of losing out or not having that guy and then having to go back to the well and find a new quarterback and do everything through the hard way that then pushes them, I think, I think it is a bit of a fear-based standpoint to then drive to then sign those contracts that are ridiculous. I don't think it's one that's foresight or they're properly building the team and they've got a long-range plan on how they're going to do it. It all seems very reactive to me. And, Brian, every quarterback just kind of keeps pushing the envelope on this. Every next guy that's up to be paid just keeps saying, well, the last guy's gotten paid and this guy who's not even half as much of a player as I am is getting paid at that amount. So you got to pay me up at this amount. And it just continually kept getting pushed and pushed because of that. But I think it's those two factors, that the offensive explosion, the preference to offense, and then the fact that you've had two of the, we may come to find in 2040 that in Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes, that in football's history of 150 years, that those are the two best quarterbacks that ever played the sport. And they just happened within this 20-year period. That's going to distort some views from general managers and people out there and how they look at the position, probably. And understandably so. Brian East says, especially with all the early round rookies not playing up to expectations. Yeah, that's the other part of it you see on top of it, Brian, where we notice that it's also not just the paying that's gotten out of control, but it's the selecting of quarterbacks. The second that you got the first round quarterback contract stuff under control, where you weren't paying guys like Bradford coming out of Oklahoma $150 million before he'd even thrown one pass, and you got the contracts down just a little bit, you made it financially now a little more advantageous for them again to take that risk. And what are they doing, Brian? They're trying to go get that quarterback. They get on the rookie contract, who is that Mahomes Brady type guy, and then he can elevate the supporting cast, and he's cheap at the same time. They're all looking for like that short. It's a look for shortcut. I guess now as I really kind of talk this through, it's looking for a shortcut rather than taking the proper approach. They're trying to sneak through the haunted woods, there's a witch in there. You know that she eats kids. She's in there, but it's quicker. It gets you faster through the path. You might get through the faster path, but you're much more likely to get captured by the witch. And you just got to take the long approach around. Does it take a little bit longer? Yeah, but is it the proper way? Is it less than built on you finding the magical elf? Yeah, it is. Seems like solider ground to stand on to try to get yourself to becoming a contender rather than looking for the once in a lifetime shot. Brian, he says, how much of it to an owner is the star power of an individual player? Teams are extremely quarterback centric and owners just want butts in seats. So they'll buy the shiny object. Owners could be pushing a big part of this, Brian. It's a part I don't know on that, to be honest. And I think with certain owners, it's different from other owners. There's guys that are going to be much more pushy on, to your point, maybe coming into the front office and saying, this is going to get done whether you like it or not. We're going to sign this quarterback whether you like it or not. And that certainly could be the case. And that certainly could be playing out at a pretty wide level. I do wonder about that, though, a little bit. I do wonder that. I just wonder a little bit about that one myself. Does it happen? It happens. No doubt about that. I don't think it happens at a wide level because of a couple of reasons. Number one, the NFL is printing money. People are showing up into stadiums. They're showing up for games, even teams that are mid like Carolina Panthers last year. Did they not have people still showing up at that stadium on a weekly basis? Did they not still fill that house? Were they not still getting eyeballs on televisions? So if you're not paying them and it's not restricting you from that standpoint to do it, you're not being pulled to sign the guy because of that. You have to come out of pocket about $150, $200 million to throw into escrow as an owner. So there's a direct financial hit that you have to take that position as well. You're not just telling them to sign the guy. You're also saying, let me call my accountant and have him liquidate this and liquidate that. So I've got my $200 million that I can give this guy, right now, or I can get that into escrow right now immediately. So there's another one that's kind of a little bit of a pullback from, naturally necessarily doing it on that side of things. It doesn't increase, to me, really your bottom line if you're trying to sell the team. I mean, that could be the other way people say it, is that you're doing it because you're selling the team and you want to have a starting quarterback because it'll make your team theoretically look like it's worth more. I don't think that that's occurring either. Teams are going to always, the next team up is still going to sell for, way much more. So that's the part I understand on. I get where you're coming from on it. And it could be, I'm not doubting, Brian, that there's certainly some teams out there that have that in how they operate. Did the Browns come into that deal for Deshaun Watson a couple of years ago and have the owner come in and say, get the deal done? Very likely a situation happened there with that, especially with all the guaranteed money they got. That wouldn't be something that you would think a general manager would be saying, let's do this deal for Deshaun Watson and then let's give him this guaranteed contract on top of it. That seemed like an owner thing. So it's definitely happening to a degree. I just don't know if I'd say by wide and large margin it's happening, where I think most teams are more doing it less for the butts and seats and more for the, well, if not this guy, then what are we going to do? If we don't just sign this guy, then what's our other option then? It becomes a little bit about that. It becomes that fear of the unknown rather than really the support of the current and what you have.